Hi guys, this is Arkel here, and today I'm going to be showing you how I draw and shade hair with graphite pencil. I had quite a bit of requests for this tutorial in my sketchbook videos, so hopefully this will help those who are interested in learning about how I draw and shade hair. I'm going to be showing you in real time how I do this, but before that I wanted to explain a few basics regarding hair. These are relatively simple concepts that you guys probably already know, but for the absolute beginners out there, these are things that you need to know before you begin drawing hair. Okay, so there are three things you need to keep in mind when drawing hair, and these are gravity, texture, and weight. These three things all affect one another, so it's important to understand each one individually first. Gravity is of course the force that keeps us on the ground and keeps us from floating off into space. Gravity is also what says that your hair grows downward from the top of your head. Of course, we know that hair grows on top of the head, but if it gets too long, it will not continue to grow upwards as it does when it is shorter. This is because gravity will naturally pull the hair down once it gets to a certain weight. And this is our second topic. If your hair is very long, it tends to become very heavy. You've probably noticed that real people in real life do not have hair like Vegeta from Dragon Ball Z. This is because in real life, given the texture of the hair and its length, gravity would naturally pull the hair down, making that hairstyle virtually impossible. Though anime hair tends to defy gravity, still keep in mind that very long hair will be very heavy, and it would not make much sense if it stands straight up given how heavy it would be. And of course, the last thing to consider is about the texture of the hair. This is something that I notice people often forget to think about when designing hair. For example, let's think about afros. They can stick straight up from the head and defy what we know about gravity. This is because the texture of this type of hair is much lighter than that of straighter hair, making it not as affected by gravity. It's also the same with wavy hair. Because it's looser and it's lighter, it tends to weigh less and is less affected by gravity. When you draw hair, please consider beforehand what type of texture the hair will have. If you don't, you may encounter the problem where your hairstyles look severely unrealistic, even for anime standards. Now, of course, I've said all these things, but as always, these are just things that you should try to keep in mind, not what you absolutely must follow. In anime, there's a lot of wiggle room within these concepts, but really, try not to fall too heavily into the very unrealistic Vegeta and/or Cloud gravity-defying hairstyles. Lately, as you may have noticed, anime has taken a turn for slightly more realistic hairstyles as it is anyway, as compared to anime, say, about 10 years or so ago. Well, now that you know the basics of hair, I'm going to get right into the tutorial and show you how I go about drawing and shading hair. Alright, so let's get into the tutorial. I'm going to be showing you how I draw and shade hair with graphite pencils. But of course remember that this is just what I do, and it's really in no way like the best way of going about doing it. It's just like what I do, and it's just easy for me. Here I have the head of the character drawn out. When I draw hair, I really like to draw out the entire shape of the head, so I have an idea of where the top of the hair and the bangs should go. If you don't really draw out the entire head beforehand, you may notice that when you draw hair, it looks either too big or too small and makes the head look odd. And basically, like, what I do is I kind of think of like what the shape of the hair that I'm going for is. You want to have like an idea of like what you want the hair to look like beforehand, and you just want to have like a general shape, in mind. So for this particular character, I already know what his hair looks like because I draw it all the time. So I'm just going to kind of like roughly kind of shape this out, and basically how big the hair will be. Just make a kind of like a rough shape of like, this is just like the basic like outline of the hair. Like, don't really like do any crazy details. Just sort of make like an outline of the outside of the hair. If you're dealing with like really long or like really like curly detailed hair, you don't really necessarily have to do this. But it's good to just map out like basically what the shape of the hair will look like ahead of time. And when you have like the shape of the hair basically like figured out, don't worry about shaping out the bangs or anything like that, because we're going to get into that, but just around the head. Like say if you have like really long hair, you can, you know, do all these little wavies around here, just make the basic shape around the head. And then basically what I do after that is I'm going to start up at the top, right around here, where the hairline is. And what you want to pay attention when you draw hair is that your hair grows from one particular point on the top of your head. And this is like, you know, the hairline that you have. So all of your hair will kind of originate from that like point, and it's going to be like right around here or so, like the top corner of the head. So you just want to keep that in mind. And depending, like I said, on the texture and the weight of the hair, it will sort of fall differently depending on those factors. But generally speaking, the hair will sort of point downward as it's affected by gravity. So when you're drawing hair, it's important that unless your character has a type of hair texture that is very light, you want to make sure that their hair is falling it's in a way that it makes sense to gravity. Because if you don't do this, I know it is anime, and you know they're like, you probably be like, Arkell, like what are you talking about? Like anime hair doesn't follow any rules of gravity. Yeah, that's true. But if you want your hair to make sense, if you want your character's hair to not be like, whoa, what the hell is going on top of their head, then you know you want to have a little bit in mind in regards to gravity. Just a basic idea of gravity. So just filling in how the bangs would fall on his head. In this particular character's case, cannot talk. His bangs just kind of go across his forehead, kind of sweeping a little bit. And hair, of course, can do this, especially when it's shorter like this. You'll often see the bangs of the hair can kind of sweep across the face rather than just like go straight down. And this again has to do with hair texture. If your hair is very like heavy and very straight, chances are it might not do this. It might be very difficult for your hair to sort of curve in that way. But for this particular character, his hair can definitely do that. So give it a little swoop like that. Basically what I'm doing. I'm trying to get this stupid little I'm so OCD when it comes to my characters. I gotta get a stupid little points right. Alright. So, basically that's like the general shape of his hair and the bangs and stuff. And that's basically really like all I would do. Unless I'm having like drawing hair that has a lot of texture to it and it's like very like divided into strands, then I would go ahead and like separate each one of these like strands of hair, which you've probably seen in my sketchbook video. I'll kind of show you a little bit what I mean by that. I would sort of go ahead and separate every single little, well not every single, but like separate more obviously these strands of hair like this. Separate them into like locks, that's the right word. Separate them into like locks of hair on the head. And this is something that you can do. I do this with some characters. Again, it has to do with the texture of the hair. If their hair is like heavy enough to form these kind of like locks. If your hair is not really heavy, chances are it'll be like lighter and it won't really form these sort of very like uniform type of locks on your head. This particular character has some pretty light hair, so his hair wouldn't really do that. But so you can see the idea. There is the general idea of what you do. And okay, this is gonna drive me crazy. This stupid point is gonna drive me crazy. Sorry guys, I have to fix this. It's my character after all. I have to be OCD about this. I'm so lame. Alright. That's better. That's a bit more equal. Alright, so yeah, so like I said, in other types of hair, you probably saw this a lot in my sketchbook. Depending on the texture of the hair, I'll sort of individually like draw each one of these strands. And you know, just for the sake of this tutorial, to show you guys how I do that, I think I'll go ahead and do this, even though this particular character, his hair is not really ever separated like this. But just to give you an idea of kind of how I do this. Now you want to pay attention to how the hair like falls. You see like this particular piece of hair like right in here is kind of overlapping this one, and so you want to draw it that way. You want to actually draw the hair like this particular line. You see it's going over this one. And there's a kind of space in between here that's not this lock of hair, it's not that lock of hair, but it's the lock of hair that's underneath it. And you, like, in my particular style, I kind of like to like pay emphasis to those little areas, like in between the lines of hair. Just because, like, I don't know, I think it adds lots of depth into the hair, so you can, like, you know, it has like layers, it has multiple layers you can sort of see. It's not just one flat thing stuck to the person's head. So yeah, that's basically how I do on that. And if I was shading, like I was drawing that particular hair like that, just like I would do like with line arting or like any kind of shading really, the point at which like these lines meet, where it becomes a sort of like middle section right here, I would make darker. And the same for this top part up here. Again, because it's where these two lines meet. And so, like, think of this, like this little shadow part, this darker line, as inside of these two locks of hair. It's that darker area down there. So that's why I would make that line darker. And of course, for any other area that was like that, I would do the exact same thing. And I would just do this over and over throughout the entire hair, just making, like, you know, where those darker areas would be, just making those lines darker. But I'm going to go right ahead into the shading of this because this is kind of basically what I do on shading with graphite pencils. It's pretty relatively simple, so I'm going to get right into that. Basically all I do is I'm going to start at the just bear with me here. I'm going to start at the bottom of the hair and like make strokes and work my way up. And then I'm going to start at the top of the hair and do the exact opposite, working my way down. I'm going to try to leave sort of some white space in this kind of middle area right here. And I'll just go ahead and show you what I mean by that. Now, of course, I did say that, you know, your hair follows a hairline, and so it is going to go downwards with gravity. But in this particular case, when I'm shading hair, I like to start at the bottom first. I also start at the top too. You'll see I'll go up to the top. I like to start at these bottom parts and just sort of draw these lines upwards. Of course, as we know, they're going down. Just like this. The lines are going down. You're going to leave this sort of white space in the middle here. Now, as you can see, I'm starting at this very corner here, and I'm going over a lot. Going over the exact same area, starting at this corner, and keep going over it. I'm not even really like changing the pressure that I'm using. I'm just going over that area again and again and again. And make this like a flicking motion, like flick, like this. Quick little flicking motions. Don't really put too much thought into it. Just sort of make these quick little flicking motions and don't really change your pressure or anything like that. Just sort of like the areas that you want darkest, you want to start with first. But you're going to keep going over those areas until it's, you know, at a darkness that you like. Of course, you can go over this as many times as you like. So if it's not dark enough the first time, don't worry about it. Just keep going, and if you feel it needs to be darker, you can always do that. When you're using graphite pencils, I tend to use just one pencil because, quite honestly, I'm kind of lazy, and I don't like to have a bunch of different pencils and have to keep constantly changing my pencil. I just don't like doing that. It's annoying and frustrating to me. I just like using one pencil, so I pretty much do all of my transitional shades with this one pencil. So as you can see, the lightest colors were made by this pencil, and so were the darkest ones. So if I want to make an area darker, I would just go over it again. Now I'm pretty much just going to do this for the entire hair here, just starting from the bottom, as you can see, bottom of the hair, and then just sort of pulling upwards, and then going from the top of the hair and rounding it down with the shape of the head, mind you. Please do not make your lines random. Don't make them for the sake of this exercise. Don't do this. Don't random strokes like that, because it makes no sense to the shape of the head. You want to make sure that whatever this is why we made the shape of the head ahead of time, so you know where the hair is going, you know where it's falling. Just the same thing with these lines in here to show you pretty much where it's going, and that's the lines that you want to follow when you're shading. Like I said, if you do this, it doesn't make any sense. Like, where are these lines going? It doesn't make any sense. So you definitely want to pay attention to the shape of the head and the way the hair is falling. Of course, if the hair is inside some of like a hair accessory, it's in braids or something, of course it has